Super important to travel, be cultured, be really, really resourceful in design. Let's say in Biophilic, I'm trying to find those unique pieces, nature inspired, where I could incorporate them and infuse them into my designs. Welcome back to Bespoke.
For anyone just tuning in, we're so glad you're here. We got so much great feedback from the first episode, so we're very, very excited to,
Very excited.
continue.
Yes.
Yes, so today we're diving into something that's very integral to any designer's journey, just finding your niche and learning to express yourself through your design and your personal aesthetic. Why do you think it's so important for a designer to kind of find that niche or find their own personal style before taking on clients?
So I think it's important to find your own aesthetic, but I also think it's super important for every designer to know how to design across the board. Because again, we are a curated design firm. We are designing for the client. So if a client comes in and says, I want traditional design, I have to know the errors and how I'm designing traditionally or transitional or contemporary. So I think it's super important that designers are educated, and if they're not or they lack a certain error, do your research. What went into that error, the kind of furnishings, the kind of color schemes, the kind of color palettes, because you are designing for the client. Having said that, my aesthetic changed over the years because I started design with traditional design. And as I started traveling more to Italy and to Salone and to Paris, your aesthetic begins to change. And then you kind of see what you really like. And I was drawn more to transitional and contemporary and really fine lines and timeless design, where I find that now I have that signature style, even if I'm designing for clients in a different way or in a different kind of design schematic, you still see
You see,
that it's
it's
mine,
yours,
right?
exactly,
So
like, you can tell that a space was designed by Sarah Z walking into it.
into it, right?
Yes,
Even
so
though
you're
most of them
they don't
don't
look the
even
same.
resemble each other,
No,
correct?
like, they don't look the same at
At
all,
all.
but it's like you could see your personal touch
Touch,
and your
right?
style, and just like we were talking about biophilic design and how that's a big part of your aesthetic and what we deliver into our clients' homes.
That goes back to your travels. It's super important to travel, be cultured, be really, really resourceful in design, where you're trying to find that. And let's say in Biophilic, I'm trying to find those unique pieces, nature inspired, where I could incorporate them and infuse them into my designs. I really strongly recommend that for every
For
designer.
everyone, yes, traveling, going to the different shows, seeing new
Right.
things because you don't know what you like until you've really seen everything.
Meeting a lot of people, speaking to people, finding about their past and histories, and just like trying to create a story, because at the end of the day, when we design a space, we're creating the story and then everything that goes with it.
So, if you had to describe your design style in 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Timeless,
Timeless.
fresh,
Mhm.
biophilic.
That's 3, we did it. Well, it's like, where did this come from, and what was the process for you? Because you said that you had started with more traditional styles. What was that process like finding your way to where you are now?
I think it just came easy and natural, because when I walked into a space, and this is one of the other things I learned in school, my professor, she said, for you to be a great designer, you have to walk into a space and envision what the outcome is gonna be. And when I walk into a space and it's on the ocean and you walk onto the balcony, it's so easy because you have this amazing, beautiful view and a natural habitat. And you're like, okay, this is what I want to pull in. I want to pull in the brightness. I want to pull in the light colors, but I don't want it to seem like too cold and too Miami and too
Right.
chrome and too glass,
Yeah.
right? So I think the specialty that allowed for me to kind of delve into my aesthetic was using a lot of textures, using a lot of colors, but keeping the palette bright and airy, and incorporating all those biophilic elements.
Yes. And we've discussed before, you do biophilic design with kind of your own unique twist. What initially kind of drew you to biophilic design? How do you think it became such a core part of your work and what you do?
So think about nature, and so I'll give you which is an easy example because we're sitting in Florida. I was sitting on the balcony and just for 2 hours, I had my sketchbook and I kept listening to the sound of the waves and sound of the wave. And I said, how amazing would it be if I could incorporate water droplets on a wall? And I started researching and I found Alex Turco who does, all these panels and you could get them with like a water feel and actually feel the panels to
Like,
feel
yeah,
like
those beautiful
raised
textures.
droplets,
Yeah.
right? So I started incorporating all these finishes and textures with water feels and natural elements and plants and actual rocks and pebbles and agate in the blues to kind of pull in the exterior. And in a way where there was like a long hallway, at the end of the hallway, I said, wow, I'd love to incorporate some form of interest. What can I do to make it a part of the biophilic elements? And I found these beautiful pebble-like bronze sconces, and I designed them in a way where they were 11 to form one large pebble cluster at the end of a hallway and incorporate a lot of natural woods. So I think once you start focusing in on nature, your mind starts creating all these natural things and it just takes on a whole new life. So one thing leads to the next and oh my god, I'm going to do this and I'm going to incorporate a mirror with fractal design that falls into the natural element, that you could only see in nature,
Right.
right? A tree trunk coffee table with a million fractals that only nature could design this, produce this tree trunk, and it just takes on a whole new life. So biophilic doesn't only mean a green wall or a
Right.
planter, or it's just taking natural elements and you could do it in any color, any finish, any metal, and just build it up that way.
What would you say are kind of the biggest misconceptions about biophilic design that you typically hear on the day to day? I hear a lot about, oh, everything is green and brown,
Right.
and yeah.
So, there's so much research about biophilic health benefits. Like in Sweden, hospitals are using green walls and windows to incorporate the exterior. So, for the health benefit of their patients, and it really works. But besides that, there's an added layer that you could kind of incorporate just natural elements with and and I think a lot of the industry is seeing that now. So a lot of the lighting is designed in a way where it mimics, droplets of water with strings
Like the
or
floral ones that
yes,
kind of like look like
floral and
vines.
right, or
Hmm.
shell tables and
Hmm.
layers and, natural stones. So a lot of the industry is gearing towards biophilic design and it's becoming more and more and more apparent. Schools, if you take schools, they notice that kids are much more serene in an open air,
An
you know,
airier
area
environment.
environment
Yeah.
with trees and
Hmm.
planters. And like I just designed a school in Miami Beach where we painted the walls in a blue and had like natural elements into the cafeteria, making bright, airy spaces. Also, infusion of great smells helps the soul. You walk in, you're like, I
Ah,
love this. It
amazing.
smells
Yes.
amazing. I just want to be here. So there's so many different things that
Yeah.
fall into the category of biophilic
Yeah.
design.
And like you said, a big part of biophilic design is pulling in exterior views kind of into the interior. So how you would design in Miami would be different than how you would design in like Tucson. But
100%.
yeah,
If I'm in Arizona and I'm designing a house
mhm,
nestled in the Red Rock Mountains,
right.
I probably
You're not using
create.
oceanic blues.
No, of course not. I'm not. I would probably carve part of the mountain into my living room and make it all
Ooh.
glass and incorporate the warmer red tones, the
Mhm.
brown tones, and pull in that natural habitat into the condo or house that I'm designing.
Are there any other design styles that you found yourself drawn to, or maybe some that you haven't had the chance to explore that you'd like to in the future?
I love modern. I love contemporary. I also loved part of my favorite era growing up and learning about in school, and I had to really visit it in person, was the Rococo area during Louis the 15th and the 16th, and Versailles is just amazing. The smaller, flowy furniture with all the pastel palettes of like baby
Beautiful.
blues and greens
Mhm.
and that flowy
The
era.
floral
Yeah, the
motifs that
floral
they oh,
motifs,
so
which
cute.
was one of my favorites, but
I
it's
love
kind of
them.
hard to design that
Especially
today.
here, like,
But when you go to Europe and you go to Paris, like the Opera House, and you go to
mhm,
Versailles and you go to the Louvre, it's just amazing
it's beyond. And
because there's so much
I was
history,
gonna
and
say
that's
that.
just like inspiration
Right,
across the board.
right.
So even if you steal something traditional and
Mhm.
transition it into a contemporary design, it could work
It could
beautifully.
work beautifully, like a combination of aesthetics. You don't have to just do one thing,
Right,
right?
right.
So, what is the biggest risks you've taken in design? Like, what's one of the craziest things you've kind of incorporated into a home? You're like, you know what? This may work, this may not work, but I've just got to try it.
So there's a few crazy stories. I designed this chandelier that was over 700 pounds. It was all
Wow.
rock glass and it weighed a ton, but I kind of wanted to mimic the droplets of dew, and I
Mhm.
did it in a smoky glass. And being that we designed it in a condo, and we had to kind of bring in engineering
Mhm.
to see how the slab can sustain it. And we had to build a sub ceiling with all 18 gauge metal to sustain the weight of the
Wow.
chandelier. And I was so scared. I said, maybe we
It's
shouldn't do
terrifying.
this because God forbid, the last thing I
It
need is
falls from the ceiling.
for it to fall onto their dining
Right.
table. And so I remember building up the ceiling. We're all on the job site, and I had eight, no, sorry, four guys that were over 200 pounds just hanging from the
From that.
ceiling, swinging back and forth
Oh my.
to make sure that
It
the
was like
weight
nothing
is
was taking it down.
sustainable. Exactly.
Nothing was
And
taking that
I think
chandelier
we even
down.
have a video of it,
Do we?
but it was just, I wasn't sleeping at night because it's
Of
such a
course.
big liability, and it worked out great. The chandelier is still
It's
hanging.
still it still stands.
Thank
It
God.
still stands.
But that was one of the
Mhm.
biggest design risks that I've
It's
taken,
super cool. But yeah, it's important to take creative risks because it's like, let's say you're like, let's just scrap it. We wouldn't have known that. Hey, like we
right.
can incorporate things like this, or we can do these large scale like chandeliers, and it could work. And now.
So part of the problem with contractors and designers, and they automatically think that designers just, oh, you're a designer, you draw everything, everything looks great
Mhm.
on paper, but it cannot be executed in the field.
Right.
And I think part of the added advantage that I have is that I come from a construction
Construction
background
background.
first.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when we design in the office and I kind of hand it over to the team
Hmm.
and I'm like, this is great, it looks beautiful, but it cannot be done this way, let's do it
Hmm.
this way. And we're not dismissed so easily in the
Right.
field
Right.
like other designers are.
Yeah, it's because you have that background and that knowledge, so we kind of know what we're talking about
Right.
when it comes to that.
Sometimes,
Sometimes
most of the time.
I give a 75%. But do you ever dream of designing a whole home and like maybe like a Japandi style, Art Deco, maximalist?
So I mean, there's a lot of projects that are on my bucket list.
Mhm.
I never thought I would be designing two synagogues, which we are, and that's
Yes,
definitely
it's huge.
very, very challenging. And you
Hmm.
just school was one of them, and that was
Hmm.
amazing. But I would love to do something Asian, maybe
Yeah,
Balinese style or Japandi
so
style.
beautiful.
Maximalism, I love. I think that you
Yes.
could do so much. And I think layering a project,
Hmm.
to its full capacity with different design elements is
That could
just a
be so
dream. It's
cool.
anyone's
Like,
dream, and that would
right.
be cool.
Like a
I
kid in a
haven't
candy shop.
come across the client that would want that yet, but
If you're a
I don't know.
maximalist, join us, please.
Exactly.
Oh my God. But where do you usually find like inspiration for your designs?
I would say most of my inspirations come from my travels.
Hmm.
Europe is an enormous source
Oh
of
my God.
inspiration. There's so much to see from the mini markets in Paris, from the antique market in Paris, to, the souk in Morocco, to Dubai, which was amazing, and Milan. And I think part of the design experience, which is an amazing experience, is that clients look to you for
Right.
guidance and for the inspiration, and they know that, wow, you know what? Sarah traveled and she's seen and she's
Hmm.
been and she knows, what comes from here, and she could resource this for me. Where if you stick to your limits,
Hmm.
and not to say, the States have amazing shows
Of
too. I
course.
travel every,
You just came
twice a
from
year to
Atlanta.
High Point and Atlanta, and, and Chicago, and,
Hmm.
Dallas. So there's a lot of amazing
Of
shows
course.
here, but I don't think you could be as resourceful as when you
Hmm.
go out of the country
Yeah.
and you travel to Europe, Morocco. I mean, anywhere,
Yeah.
really anywhere. You could find inspiration anywhere. And it doesn't even have to be an artifact. It could just be a scenic view where you're
Hmm.
like, oh my God, I love that. I just want to stay in this position and bring this into a design.
Right. And I feel like Europe, they're very ahead of the trend cycle. They always have their finger on the pulse. So something that people have just started doing here, like recently, they've been doing it in Europe for about like 5 years or longer.
Correct.
So it's
So
really important for getting fresh inspiration or new input that you could kind of put into a new design.
100%. And I think
Right.
that you're 100% right. The cutting edge of a
Mm.
designer is it's their travels
Yes.
and being ahead of the trends and being ahead of the game. But as much as you want to do trends and design with trends, you also have to create something timeless,
Right.
right?
Right. You can't design
So
for a trend
you
because
have to have a good
it's a
balance.
cycle. It's a
Right,
cycle. Things go in and out all the time. So you
right.
need something that's gonna last.
That's correct.
When you're feeling creatively stuck, do you have any like rituals or routines that you do when you're like in a funk or you can't figure out how I'm gonna make this thing work with this thing?
So it does happen, and
Hmm.
you could see our office is very busy, so I can't really design in the office because I feel like I'm always putting out fires. Sarah, this happened. Sarah, that happened. Sarah,
Yes.
this happened. What do we do with this? This client called here, and this client wants this answer,
Mhm.
and the millwork guy wants the shop drawings, and this happened in the field and
Like,
FaceTime. Like we
God
had a
bless
team
you.
meeting
Right.
today, and there was 20
Hmm.
interruptions. So sometimes I find that I am blocked because I'm so
So much
overwhelmed,
input.
so much input. And that's where I'm like, okay, I take a trip,
Hmm.
whether to New York, whether outside of the country, whether sitting by the beach or by a pool,
Right.
and just with my sketchbook. And I just have to zoom in because it's a lot of concentration to design,
Yeah.
and you can't have any interruptions,
Yes.
right?
And like especially those days where you get to go to the design district and go
And
shopping
it's still
around,
not
it's
enough
still not right.
because it's not between the traffic and by the time
Oh
you
my
get to
God.
Miami and then the phone calls, I have to
Mm.
just shut my phone and
Yes.
zero in
Just
on
zero in on the
strictly
design.
design.
And even though we do design for other people, it's also very, very personal. And like we were saying, you have to be versatile to be an interior designer, but finding your own space or what you love to do, I think it's just like kind of paramount to having enjoyment in what you do. and we could tell that you love design.
Definitely.
It's your favorite part of the
I
job.
think you have to love what you do. I
Yeah.
think everything in life that you do has to be a passion, no matter what.
Yes, and you're very passionate about your projects. You're saying that's like every single project is like a baby. You can't choose a favorite.
You can't. It's very hard to
Yeah,
choose a favorite because, you baby it. I kind of have withdrawal when I'm done with a project. I'm like, oh my
right.
God, like what do I do now? I'm
Like,
done. But it's true. Each one you nurture the project from
right.
beginning to end. So it's kind of like your baby.
It is, and you have some beautiful babies out there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Bespoke. We're so glad that you joined us. If there's anything else that you'd like to hear us talk about or discuss on the pod, we're open to suggestions. So just let us know. Thank you so much for joining
Thank you.
us.
Thank you, Christina, and see you
Thank you,
guys next
Sarah.
time.
See you next episode. Bye.